Well, we're excited to be together today. I have with me Deborah Blake, who is an expert in both the home building space, particularly the 55 plus active adult. Thanks for joining
Thanks.
us.
Oh, I'm happy to be here. Thanks for inviting me.
Well, we've worked together over many years in
Mhm.
many master plan communities, and we just wanted to catch up with 2025 with new administration, with interest rates, with the topsy-turvy. I know you just got back from IBS. Some of the things I'm hearing that many markets, there's not enough new homes. And then in other, markets, it seems like it's really hard to sell your home. And whether it's new home construction or resale, it seems to be very interesting times, particularly for home builders, as they're trying to make decisions, looking at margins. And I'd be interested what kind of the sentiment and feeling after attending IBS and kind of where that community's at these days.
Yeah. Well, I mean, over the last year or so, new home builders have really had an advantage in the market with interest rates going up. They use their incentive dollars and continue to do that, use their incentive dollars to buy down mortgage rates. And that is taking the market from resale. So very interesting. I mean, for active adult, I'm working with my clients to say, hey, during times like this, we have to help our prospective buyers understand what their home is worth and what the right price is and all the tools that they have available to them to help those buyers who might be passing over a resale home for a new home that it appears can, there are trade-offs in every transaction, right? But they may think that the new home option is the only one because the incentives are out there. I mean, everyone's advertising incentives, it's buy downs, it's so really it's about helping our boomer buyers who are sitting on an incredible amount of equity in their homes. They have room to play, and we need to help them do that math and help them understand what those resources are. But that has been going on now for a year or so. I just saw today national news that mortgage applications are up 11%. I mean, I was speaking. Who would have thought? I mean, I think there were a bunch of us that were kind of caught off guard with that because back to the International Builder Show, there was 80 to 100,000 people there from all over the country, and the nationals, the event, the awards. The opening was Tim Sullivan from Zonda. We all know him. And he said he was moderating a panel and of home builders and executives and, basically said it's going to be tough. We got to get ready for a new normal. How many times have we heard that? I mean, so what's the new normal? I think we just need to be prepared. Now, he used it as an opening with the group to say, so all of you, award-winning architects and designers and salespeople, it's all on you to figure out how you can sell through this and how we can get through this. But, these are the times when everything matters.
And it's interesting. I think new normal just means buckle up and get ready.
Exactly.
Changes continue.
Whatever it is, changes continue. Yeah.
You talked a little bit about the buy down. It's interesting when you think about some of the generations that are looking to buy a home. Hardly ever are they evaluating how much equity they're buying into. It's usually, what's my monthly payment?
Right.
That's how we're trained to buy cars. That's how we're trained to buy homes. So I might be buying a new home for a premium, but if my monthly payment can be somewhat similar to an older home because of the interest rate buy down, I think that's appealing.
Well, and that's what the new home builders have had as the advantage.
Right.
And that will continue to play.
But
like I said, for active adult, we don't sell new homes until those people can sell their family homes to another family that would enjoy it as much as them. So my active adult builder clients, we're really focused on not just the marketing side of hyping up do you know how great it is here, and inviting them to events where they can meet future neighbors and friends and all that good stuff that we know about, and talking about wellness and how much better your life will be and active living. But we have to help them get
Sure,
their
the
heads
table.
around
Yeah.
selling their home,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And life is too short. And so for our customer, they need to move. It's the
Yeah.
right thing to do, and we know all those things.
Yeah.
But if
Interesting.
you think about the burden and the overwhelming thought of cleaning and downsizing from a home that you've been in with
It
your
could take
family for
years.
30 years.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah. So we are really focused on not only understanding that that is an objection,
Mhm.
but helping our salespeople give them tools to overcome it and
To
get
help
beyond
them.
it
Yeah.
and make it an enjoyable process
Yeah.
if that's possible.
Yeah.
But that's what we're going to focus on.
So as we think about, kind of where we're at today in the economy, we see a rise in new home construction. We're seeing mortgage rates, affordability pressures continue to bear down, and hence the buy down's helpful.
Yeah.
There is some focus on sustainability. We're looking at more multi-generational rental housing.
Sure.
Sometimes as I think about my younger siblings and nieces and nephews trying to buy a home for the first time, it seems crazy.
Yeah.
I mean, we bought our first home and it was $250,000, $300,000, and they're looking at $600,000 to $700,000
Right.
for something much smaller.
Right.
And then
Which is, by the way, why boomers are sharing
yes,
a lot of wealth with their children.
yeah,
It's the stats are really very interesting. They are definitely helping their children
yeah,
buy their first home.
yeah. No, absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
I'm just gonna check my camera, but I have to walk past. So
So you're good.
let me see real quick.
Make sure you're good. We'll pause there.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
You
How
good?
does it go?
Yeah.
No, we're good.
Oh, okay.
This is good. I'm going to dive into some other questions here.
Okay.
The other last thing I'll note is as we think about, some trends is that Gen X and baby boomers,
Yeah.
as you kind of talked about, the equity driven moves, they can leverage what they have in their homes. They're looking at downsizing. They think about their forever homes, but now saying, maybe I should do something different.
Yeah, I mean, everything you hear about boomers in general studies, and there are big studies, whether it's, Fortune or AARP just had one at the end of the year. And the majority of boomers, when asked, they don't want to move. This is my forever home.
Yeah.
And so I get that question like, well, they're not moving. Well, actually they are. And if you look at 114 million people in the United States being over the age of 55 by 2033,
Wow.
okay?
Wow.
And we look at 11,000 people a day, boomers are turning 65 until the end of until the end of 2029.
Yeah.
So it's a big number.
Yeah.
And the whole, and back to the AARP study showed a 400 basis point improvement for boomers saying, I actually want to move to an active adult community. So if you just take that little number and multiply it against that denominator,
So much,
there's so much opportunity.
Yeah.
And so, so you have to kind of get past that. And some people, I think COVID really put incredible urgency on the active adult customer. 2021, I can go anywhere in the country. We all talk about it. It was amazing.
It was
We had never seen, it was good for the whole
demand was,
home building industry. But particularly for active adults who are discretionary buyers, they really came like, we're doing it.
Yeah.
Like being locked up, seeing the body bags coming out of the senior living community and the senior living communities getting locked down. They want to live independently as long as possible. So when we're talking about active adult communities and homes in active adult communities, we're really focusing on this concept of universal design so that so that these boomers can live in this home without looking for more service enriched type of options like assisted living and that type of thing.
Yeah. This can be their forever home.
This really can be. And when you look at what happened with telehealth, you look at in-house programs and how those have expanded, boomers absolutely, and active adult developer builders need to understand that's the role you play. Home has risen on the list of requirements for the new active adult buyer as well. Boomers put home design at the top of the list for the reason to move.
Wow.
And they are looking for those things that will allow them to, live there independently to the very end.
Yeah.
They're not going to say it to you, and we're not going to talk about grab bars and raised toilets or anything like that. But it is about really getting real about a 0-step entry into the home.
Yeah.
Because guess what? You have
I want a 0-step entry.
I want a 0-step entry. You have some sort of hip surgery or something. You can't catch air getting over a curb to get into your house.
Yeah.
You need to, it's not about wheelchairs. We need to stop talking about that. It is about independent living. It's about, and if you're telling this person that when you move to this community, we're all talking about wellness. I mean, it's a huge trend.
Yeah.
You talk about wellness out of one end, but on the other side, you're saying these homes aren't going to allow you to age in place. That's crazy. You have to do both these days. So really, really thinking about that, because that's a huge opportunity.
Yeah. So it was interesting. We just spent some time with my family in the Middle East. We were in United Arab Emirates, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi. And what's interesting, for me, a master planned community kind of feels like what they've done there, which is if there's nothing, and we could intentionally design everything.
Yeah.
You look at some of the cities of Europe, and you go back to Germany, and you go to Italy and Greece and London, and it kind of just happened over centuries. Things just became that way. But in Dubai, it was like somebody took a wand and could wish exactly how the landscape would play out.
Yeah, it's crazy.
And it's beautiful.
You literally were building ground.
Right.
I mean,
yeah.
Yeah.
It literally building ground, and you think, wow, this is beautiful. And it is man-made, but at the same time, it was very intentional. And they kind of foresaw that and vision. And I think of master planned communities the same way, to say, where is society going today? Wellness is a big trend. More walkability, more pickleball courts, more gyms, and to talk a little bit about those must-have amenities. What are the hot sellers these days?
Well, the must-have amenities for active adult communities, the number one is connecting with other people. So we look for gathering spaces.
And what does that look like?
I do a lot. It depends on the size of the community, because the other challenge is the large Del Webb communities, let's talk about the Sun Cities.
Yeah.
You don't find those anymore, 15,000 units, the original Sun City. Yeah. So now when we look at most builders trying to bring thoughtful active adult communities to metros in Iowa, Nebraska, if you look at the opportunities right now for active adult, it's going into markets where there's an aging population, but there's no real active adult community. And typically, those active adult communities are going to be small scale. They may be 100, 200 units. So when you talk about that, you're talking about trying to figure out what's the smallest amenity I can build.
And is that large
Air
enough?
Condition. Yes, absolutely. We can do it for 100 units. We can go 100 to 300 units. I think you're going to see a lot more of those popping up. And so it really is about gathering spaces. And so what does that look like? It's really a big great room. It has a community kitchen in it. It could be residential in quality, not commercial. And it is a place where the residents come together and they hang out and they have potlucks and they play cards and they watch, football games, and there's fire pits. Fire pits are very popular outside because they're pretty inexpensive to build. You do, just lawn chairs and such around it, not built-in benches and things like that. So that's really important. And then walkability. Is the community actually walkable? And sometimes we have topography that, we like to ignore, but it's not a walkable community because the grades are such, and but it's having connected pathways. It's connecting neighbors and friends via pathways. Those could be sidewalks. You could think about, do I want to do sidewalks on both sides of the street or just on one? Can we look at how we configure the open space so it feels like it's more than it is, because you're putting it in the entry and the center of the community around the amenity so that it feels like it's more open. But actually you're still getting the density in the neighborhoods. So there's a lot of ways to deal with that, but you don't. And then I think you have to look at outdoor space. You have to look at patios and, you know, covered outdoor space. And in some climates, it's perfect. You know, in some climates, it's not, because there's bugs and, you know, but you have to work through those things. But the number one reason continues to be, for those looking at an active adult community, is being with others like them, connecting with friends. I think people, and we see it in the research, people are increasingly isolated at all ages. I think our young people is, it kind of scares me. It makes me nervous. But as an older person,
It perpetuates.
And it perpetuates. And as an older person, the issue was that, you know, you retire from your career.
And that's a large part of who you are.
And that's your connections, that's your people, that's your friends, that's who you're hanging with. If we look at the boomers and Gen X, your kids graduate and they go to college and your friends just changed. I mean, we're little.
That's who your friends were.
Those were your friends were, you know? So there's a lot of things that drive isolation, but being lonely is a real thing and it's not good for you. The Harvard study, I don't know, you heard of the Harvard
relationships matter. Number one in life expectancy.
Exactly. In happiness. Happiness. So 80 years, you know, they followed their alumni and they found that the common thread of those happiest were the relationships that they had. So we have to continue to focus on that. I mean, the other part is wellness. And I say that active adult communities help you make it easy to be well. You know, when you think about how hard it is to get to the gym or walk on a street that really isn't good for walking, or, you know, whatever it is, it's just increasingly difficult to be well. And so you're looking for those places. So in active adult community, we need to think about how can we make it easy for people to be well. You know, we talked about the pathways. You know, I had a client who called the garage the trailhead. You know, because you open up the garage door and you're on the trail. And that's amazing. That's great, you know? And so there's a lot of land planning things you can do. When we look at fitness centers, that's really changed because you can't just throw a treadmill and, you know, a couple of treadmills and a bike in a dark room with one window because you have a small, you know, square footage to deal with in a small community. They need to be expertly designed. We need to think about what customers are experiencing today in, you know, whatever gym they're a member of, whatever health club they're a member of. They're trading that off to come to your community. So we're seeing a lot more fitness on demand, where you can just dial up really great workouts at any time of the day with your friends and have a great workout. But then the other problem is, we didn't put enough space in here for people to actually exercise. So there's now some, you know, requirements in terms of minimum spaces for exercise class. Group exercise is far more popular than being on a treadmill or whatever the piece of equipment is. I always say active adult communities, everything is more fun with friends, you know, and then if you can drink afterwards, I mean, even better. So that seems to be a trend, you know, yoga and wine. That's the perfect balance, you know. But so we're looking at small spaces and really thinking about the function in those spaces and how that gives your salespeople, your marketing team a story to tell that really resonates. So, you know, that is back to that. I'm going to live here forever. I'm going to improve my wellness. And now there's so much research out there about the boomers. So we literally can say, if you live here, you could live longer and happier. And here, we don't say it. Harvard study says it, the Blue Zones says it, you know, so it's really exciting times to be thinking about serving the boomer and doing the next generation of active adult communities.
As you think about, so you consult with many active adult communities throughout the country.
Mhm.
You're both on the sales side and on the marketing side, and kind of helping,
All of it.
helping
Yeah.
fix that problem as a consultant and working with them.
Yeah.
What would you say your kind of number one or two type challenges that they're often facing, that when you're brought in, you say, oh, there's a solve for that?
Right.
What are kind of some of those kind of top two or three?
I mean, I would say probably the biggest challenge that I see that sometimes isn't solvable is a bad land plan. So when we think about active adults, we talked about the equity earlier in the discussion. They have a lot of equity. They're generally downsizing. They want the home that they want, and they will spend more on it because they're going to put
More
a lot
per
of
square
cash.
footage, that's what
They're
matters.
they're going to put a lot of cash into the deal. They're not really concerned about appraisals. So I call this the total cost of ownership. And the concept is that they want a great lot. They'll pay you much higher lot premiums. They're going to spend more in the design center. They want what they want in a 1,500 square foot house because all they need is 2 bedrooms and a den and 2 baths, and that's fine. But they're coming out of a 4,000 square foot house that they just renovated that had Sub-Zero and Viking in it, and you can't even offer it as an option. So
You got to figure that out.
we got to figure that out. So
They want the nicer stuff.
I call it the jewel box effect, the little jewel box, quality of space over quantity of space. It's not about bedroom count. It's not about that anymore. It's about where the owner lives every day.
Yeah.
So they're not concerned about that. So when you have a land plan that doesn't give you opportunities for lot premiums and for a variety of lot types and homes that back up to open space or water or whatever. I mean, there's just a lot of opportunities. That's a missed revenue opportunity. So that is a challenge that I can't help if it's already been through for
it's
permits and you're building on it and we're not selling as fast as we'd like. Well, I always say you got to get it right on the ground with this customer, because if you don't get it right on the ground, they're not going to be sold. So they want to come out, experience it for themselves. In your marketing, they need to see themselves. The average number of visits, it's like 5 to 7 before they'll buy. And guess what? They need to meet residents so that they can talk to real people and say, the salesperson told me this. Is that true? And so experiential marketing is very important. You can't tell them it's going to be great. They need to experience it for themselves. So, and then the other part of it is when you ask about what I can do, I mean, if it's just a marketing and sales thing, I love that because we can solve that all day long. The home is right, the home plans are right, the land plan's good, it's in a good location, but you just don't have the right marketing, you're not really approaching the consumer in the way that will really compel them to move. Your customer journey maybe is a little messed up and you're not setting expectations clearly with the customer, because that's another thing with this customer has been around the block a few times. And
this isn't their first home. They know what they want.
Exactly. And they also have high expectations for anything. So if you don't lay those expectations out at the beginning of the process, when you're meeting with them to say, this is going to be great, but we're building homes and things happen. And we may not be able to deliver your home exactly on time. So this is how we communicate with you. And this is what you have to do. And this is what we have to do. And you have to set those expectations from the beginning.
And they're okay with that.
And they are. They really just want clear communication.
Honest.
Tell me what to expect, And we're going to say it's going to be generally a very delightful process. I mean, that's what we want, right? But things are going to happen, so let's prepare for those. And so I think that's really important. And then sales training is just a big deal, because great salespeople who have been very successful in the conventional side of home building may not be as effective in active adult. And it's not an age thing. I've seen late 20-year-olds be
Yeah.
very successful with this customer.
Mm.
But you need to really, really understand who they are, why they buy, what their hot buttons are, what they're thinking about. The
Yeah.
qualifying questions are completely different. Your follow-up is very different. So there is a right way to handle
do
this
it in-
customer.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would say that marketing and sales is easy if we've got the right
You
product.
can solve for it.
And then, but we deal with everything else. We can help with amenities. We can help with the model merchandising plan. We can help with new floor plans. I mean, if you're missing a few floor plans that would increase your sales by 30 or 40%, you got to get those floor plans in the lineup, you got to figure that out. So we, my background with Del Webb and Pulte gave me the experience across all disciplines, and, so that I can come in and help. And then I have just a bunch of friends and experts that I work with and bring in as needed too. So it just depends on the situation. But I find that a lot of builders are very, very interested in learning more about active adult right now because they're very concerned about the demographics. And if you look at the wealth and the size of the boomers and the Gen Xers coming through, this is ripe with opportunities.
What misconceptions exist, or what would you share with a home builder about active adult that they may not be building active adult right now because perhaps they don't understand it, or they're intimidated by it?
Yeah, I mean, what I see out there is the concern about finding land at the right price, being able to put those amenities in place, and making it pencil.
Yeah.
And I think that that's a misconception because you really haven't looked under the hood, if you will, to understand like the total cost of ownership and the opportunities for revenue generation, for premium, and then just getting the right houses on the ground. And I also think that there's this misconception that we have to change everything because Gen Xers and boomers will never want this.
Yeah.
That's a huge misconception. In fact, at the International Builder Show, we were going through, best-selling plans and looking at market studies from John Burns. And what we're finding is that the same square footage is the meat of the market, 1,500 to 2,200 square feet.
That's interesting.
It's such a get brilliant at the basics. Look for the meat of the market.
Yeah.
Don't get distracted by the fringes. We gotta get the really small home, and or we gotta get big homes, or we need to have an amenity that's a certain square footage. No. There is more diversity and segments within the boomer population and the Gen X that's coming. Than there's ever been before.
Yeah.
So figure out your micro niche and go, own that. And so we talk about, areas and also this misconception that everybody moves to Arizona and Florida or the smile states.
Yeah.
Well, if you've been paying attention the last couple of years in Florida, there have been some pretty serious hurricanes, one after another last year.
It's making that audience a little nervous.
And the result is you can't get homeowners insurance. And so why do you want to deal with that?
Yeah.
And so what we're seeing is that, like I was saying earlier, a huge opportunity is in your market. Look around for active adult communities, real active adult communities, and ask yourself how many people within a 10-mile radius are aging in place. In terrible homes, in neighborhoods that have changed, in places where they can't get all the things that they want to get.
Yeah.
Find a piece of dirt that can do 100, 200 homes and do something really special and check off the boxes of what these people want.
Yeah, that are most important.
And while things are changing, how we talk about wellness, what boomers want, there are some ways in which we need to be modern and we need to have a current messaging and the right photography and all of that. But things really haven't changed that much. So it's really about looking at best practices and thinking about how you can maximize that in your little opportunity that serves a clientele that's just waiting for something like this. And I've been in markets where they don't even know what active adult is.
Yeah.
They literally believe that their only option is a terrible senior living community that's, 4 stories and it's people are walking around in walkers and they're 75 years old.
They don't understand.
They don't understand that there's
Sweet
this
spot.
thing called active adult communities where you can actually thrive and push that off.
Yeah.
And that is really the exciting part. And so all the stuff that we've talked about today is about helping our active adult residents thrive. Literally live healthier, happier, longer.
Yeah.
And that can happen in a well-designed, thought-through active adult community.
One last question as we think about the rest of this year. There are some headwinds and there's some uncertainty and who knows what will happen with tariffs and supply chain. What are the reasons why a home builder master plan community should be optimistic? What confidence and optimism would you give them?
Well, today's a hard, it's right now, it just feels like it's frenetic, you go into a meeting, you come out an hour later and some big news is happening,
Big news drop.
and it's affecting the stock market and all of that. I know that the active adult customer is a discretionary consumer and they are looking for reasons to put it off.
Yeah.
So there is no doubt that right now people are on their heels a little bit, but we're still selling homes. And depending on the market, that will continue. I think the bright spot is the size of this population and the equity that they are sitting in. If we can help them sell their homes to families, future families that want to have the great experience that they had in that home, that I think is a huge opportunity. And there are ways to do that, even with the current interest rates. And I think we have to think through that. But since COVID, I believe that, this is consistent, that all of us are changed because of our COVID experience. No one can say
Different
that
mindset.
Didn't change you.
Absolutely.
We were exposed to things, and I don't care how old you are. But as a 55, 65-year-old, that concept of life is too short is real. And so if we can elevate that and associate that with this really great community that truly, checks all the boxes, I think that's going to move people. And the boomers can actually lower the price of their home. They're sitting on 90 to 100% equity. What's $10,000? What's $20,000 to get into this lifestyle that is just going to be so much better for me? So we have to be better at our marketing messaging. We have to understand who our customer is, what's really on their hearts and in their minds, and make sure that we're hitting that from a marketing standpoint, that we've got the right floor plans and we have zero entry into the home as an example, and walkable communities and places where they can gather with their new friends and, making it easy to be well. And if we do all of that, we have a tremendous opportunity. So that's what I think everyone I talk to is bullish on 55 plus. I think there are fears and there are builders that don't have the kind of experience or insights. But I think when you start getting into it, you realize we can do all of this. We just have to know that this is what we have to do. And then we have to deliver it. And because the customer is there, the population is there, they are wealthy. They are waiting. So for, anyone watching in a market where there's no active adult, go figure it out because it's easy. I mean, you can get it done. And there are people waiting for that because they think that terrible senior living facility is their next step. So they're going to stay and languish in their 30-year-old home
Because
that's
they feel like they
3 stories. Because that's, yeah. So they're confused too. Sometimes we have to educate the customer, right?
Yeah.
On why this is a really good thing and why it's good for them. So, so for all those reasons, I think that we just need to unlock it, you know, unlock the revenue, unlock the opportunity, unlock the customer out of this, you know, out of what they think is real and it's not. So that's why I'm bullish on active adult.
Well, pleasure speaking with you today, and thank you. Looking forward to seeing what happens the rest of this year. And
Yeah.
you're right, this next decade will be a dramatic shift.
Dramatic shift. I mean, the demographics.
Yeah.
This is the aging of America.
Yeah.
And so,
Everyone's been talking about healthcare. You're talking about housing.
yeah, I'm talking about housing, but it's affecting healthcare because let me tell you, boomers understand that this is a hedge against what is coming,
Yeah.
which is higher healthcare expenses.
Yeah.
And you're going to take control over the quality of your life, the health, you know, your
Well-being.
wellness,
Yeah.
your fitness. There's so much more information out there on the internet. There's so many more resources. And,
Yeah.
you know, with the old, you know,
Yeah.
Apple Watch or whatever you're wearing, the Fitbit, we can actually prove that living in this community will make you live healthier and longer.
Love that. Well, I'm not quite there yet, but I'll start to make a reservation.
That's right. No, you're not. No, it was great talking with you. Thank you so much for the invitation.
Thank you again, Deborah.
You're welcome.